Thank you. So I think all of you have heard a lot about Protean technologies today. Suresh spoke a while back. We've had a lot of people visiting our stall as well. But what I thought I'll touch upon in today's presentation, just very brief. I'm just going to do it in half the time. I would like you to know how we see the future of ODEs evolving. So I'm kind of crystal ball gazing a little bit. And I'm also going to show you some of what we have in our technology and product roadmap, what we plan to also do in other markets, both in India and as well as overseas. So my bet on ODEs, if you look at the slide, is in the next maybe 3 to 4 years, I see this driving billions of interactions, the way I kind of term it, across both the demand and the supply side of the ecosystem. So if you really look at it, today we talk about buyer apps, but a buyer app could be multiple different types of entities. You could have a buyer who's a consumer, who's an individual like you and me, but you could also have a buyer who's a retailer. In some cases, you could have a distributor who's also a buyer when he's purchasing from a wholesaler or from an OEM. And you have OEMs who also are buyers when they're purchasing from raw material suppliers. So the definition of a buyer changes with time and context. I see each of these spaces kind of evolving and taking maximum use of the open ecosystem powered by Beacon, and we're extremely proud to be powering some of this today. On the supply side, similarly, you see a bunch of different definitions on supply. You have a small kirana shop who can be a supplier. You have a larger SME who's a supplier. You have, again, the large OEM who's the supplier. You have multiple different types of suppliers out there. Each one of these suppliers today have a different way of running their businesses, whether it is B2C or whether it is B2B through the distribution chain. And we've been privileged to see that each one of them, when you give them the explanation of open technology, and you explain the construct of a Beacon protocol to them, they first kind of get confused. And I'm speaking from real live experience. In the last 6 months since ONDC went live, we've been interacting with a bunch of local brands, multinational brands, small shops, large entities, individuals, fintechs, banks, and all of them. And what common learning we've got from all of it is they all see open technology as a potential game changer in time to come when the entire market moves to choice where the consumer benefits from it. So if you see the center section of the slide, which talks about the different use cases and categories, what's in green today is already something that ONDC is powering, and I'm sure in the next session, Vibhor would touch upon that. But what we see in the yellow is what's going to come under an open protocol. And as someone who's also worked in the financial services industry, it's extremely encouraging, to say the least, of looking at the potential of bringing financial service products like insurance, lending, mutual funds, investments, and so on under an open ecosystem. So just try to visualize this from a consumer's lens. In, say, rural India, a person walks up to a nearby shop, which they trust as their point of purchase or point of contact. They ask them, what's the best investment product that I could put my money in today? Without an open ecosystem, it's likely he would have a bilateral partnership with 1 or 2 players, and he'll do a push product. But with the open ecosystem, the consumer gets the choice of everything, and then the decision is with the consumer. So I'm super excited, to say the least, to show you my roadmap, and I think in the next year or two, we'll see all those boxes turn green. We also touched upon some of the other sectors which are kind of riding on the wave of ODEs. Healthcare and skilling education are also building their own infrastructure as we speak. But I think the digital commerce ecosystem, which is building on top of ONDC's rails, is where we see multiple such use cases come to life. The key benefits, what I kind of see again at the bottom, which I've touched upon, is without discovery, market reach, and cost efficiency, we're not able to really get the message across to some of these entities. So the first interaction is always, why do I need to move? Why do I need to shift? What benefit does it give me? But I think with a simple demonstration, and I've got a few slides to show you of real-life examples later, it's almost intuitive. When it comes to building for ODEs, and this is something which, again, I've put together a stack based on our experience, we see that irrespective of which sector or which domain you're really building for, there are four kind of waves or pillars of investing and development and implementation. The first is your foundational DPGs, or your digital public goods, which talk about your gateways, your registries, your backend protocols, your ability to discover entities on an open network. The second part of it is where we see decentralized components and tools which are made available to all participants on the network. It's not very simple, and I think Vimal touched upon it when he spoke, that ODEs are complex. This technology is something which is not very straightforward like a normal payment system. It's far more complex because it is highly unbundled and it has dynamic rules which two parties on an open network get to negotiate at a protocol level. So it's something which we have never experienced before, and as we speak, it's evolving even further and becoming more complex. We also see a lot of other standards like network policies and other enablers which are powering the foundational stack. The second layer which I look at is more the market enablers, and this is where bringing participants on board. So just building the foundation is not going to work. You have to get people onto your foundation, get the buyers and sellers, like I said, the ecosystem of demand and supply, getting that flywheel turning. And I think this is where there's the maximum amount of heavy lifting to get the initial inertia out of the way. And once that kind of wheel starts moving quicker, I think it's almost a FOMO of a first mover. I don't want to be left out. We see an amazing kind of potential over here across sectors. Some of the innovation is only possible if you have the bottom stuff in place. And I think we, as Protean, we've seen a lot of innovative companies already come forward and build tech on top of it. Some of the examples are right here at this event, like Namayatri, and you have the EV Pulse team over here. So I think building innovative technology use cases which are consumer-facing, retailer-facing, brand-facing, again, become possible if you have the downstream tech in place. And it makes it extremely easy for these companies to start up without having to build grounds up. A lot of companies, a lot of countries who don't have the downstream tech would not be able to give the startup ecosystem this kind of a leapfrogging ability, right? Because you would not have the downstream APIs, you would not have the capability to get them to discover. And that's something which we would love to take to multiple markets where we are seeing some early interest. On top of all of this, we really think once the DPGs are established and the ODE layers are established, it's more about the awareness, adoption, and governance that really kicks in to drive the product. So touching upon one case study, and like I promised, I'll keep it really quick. I would like to get all of you to the stall, those of you who have not seen a B2B demo of how we have used backend technology to create 2 nodes, and we have demonstrated this in rural India, where 400 small shops or retailers are discovering businesses on the other side, which are on the supply side. And this is what it looks like. So one of our partners, which is Spice Money, have a small footprint in retail India. They're expanding with this kind of tech. And we see there's a huge amount of demand from the VLEs or village level entrepreneurs because they don't have access to brands, they don't have the choice. They're not able to discover products at rates using open technology. And this is something they had before. They had closed forms which would charge them commissions of 20% upwards. And this is something which will actually bring a lot of new commerce to India, and that's what ONDC is helping us enable. The growth may not come from urban or tier 1 cities, it's going to come from tier 3 downwards. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we are excited to be a part of the nominal wave of transformation. We look forward to you coming to and seeing the demo full action. Thank you very much.
All right, so fascinating. This is fascinating, by the way. That's really exciting, and I can think that, my imagination is running really wild. What could lead to, right? I mean, you almost think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and we know the commerce is not the same already. There is always an Amazon box at home or Flipkart box at home. Now, you're going to have customized, tailor-made, priced right box at home. So, but that said, what do you think is the future? What do you think in the next 5 years? Where do you think we'll be? How many users do you think will be on this platform? Your prediction?
Like I said, it's not so much about the users because users would be more on their respective interfaces. So you could be placing an order or seeking a doctor's appointment from the app of your choice. So I think the interface points to the consumers will become many more. Whether you use WhatsApp as an interface or whether you use your car navigation system as a touch point, that's just going to amplify. And I think with technology like ChatGPT coming in, if that gets controlled or converted into a voice interaction, the sky's the limit. So you could just say, buy me a shirt that fits me the best, and you pick the color. That's it, and your order's placed. Because it will go through the search algorithm, it will pull out your history, it will figure out what kind of brands you normally buy from, it will get your size, it will judge your mood, it will look at your trend, hyper-personalize, and place the order.
You like that? That's scary, but that's a great way to finish. Thank you so much.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming us.